picture this. It's spring. Your garden is waking up, and you're eagerly anticipating your harvest of overwintered onions. You've followed all the steps perfectly, right? But instead of strong, green shoots ready to swell into plump, juicy bulbs, you see neat rows of flower stalks. Sound familiar? This frustrating situation has wasted the efforts of many gardeners. Well, today we're going to uncover the biggest secret to successful fall onion planting. We'll talk about that single crucial mistake that can cause 90% of your future harvest to simply go to seed. And believe me, the answer will surprise you with its sheer simplicity. Let's start with a simple question. Why plant onions in the fall at all? The answer is obvious: to get a harvest several weeks earlier. Overwintered onions utilize winter moisture, awaken with the first rays of spring sun, and by early summer, they're already delighting us with large, juicy bulbs. It's the perfect plan. But there's one critically important point in this plan that many people overlook, often giving in to the simple human desire to pick the biggest ones. It's right here, at the stage of purchasing your planting material, where future failure is often sown. So picture this: you're at an autumn fair or visiting a garden centre. Before you, there are mounds of golden onion sets, small ones, medium ones, and then your eyes land on them. The big, perfectly uniform, top quality sets. They feel firm, they have a good weight, and they're simply a pleasure to behold. Your hand just instinctively reaches for them, and you'd agree the logic seems absolutely solid, wouldn't you? You think, the bigger and more robust the planting material, the larger and more abundant the harvest. So you pick out the biggest onion set, convinced this one is definitely going to produce a bulb the size of my fist. You confidently count out the quantity you need, pay, and head home to your garden, feeling pleased, already envisioning your glorious spring triumph. You're sure you've made the smartest choice. Because surely bigger means better, right? Well, think again. This is precisely where the most cunning trap for any gardener lies. This seemingly obvious and logical decision is, in fact, a direct path to complete failure. By choosing large onion sets for planting over winter, you are, without even knowing it, practically guaranteeing yourself a spring full of disappointment. This instinctive selection is a critical mistake, and it's the primary cause of those dreaded onion bolts. Let's demystify this intimidating phrase, going to seed. In horticultural terms, this phenomenon is called bolting, but in simple terms, it's when your onion decides it's no longer interested in growing a big, juicy bulb for you. Instead, it makes a strategic decision. Time to reproduce. It pours all its energy and stored nutrients into sending up a strong flower stalk, that infamous bolt or seed stalk. This is a thick, hollow stem that will eventually bear a spherical flower head full of seeds. While that might sound fascinating botanically, for a home gardener, it's nothing short of a disaster, because the moment an onion bolts, it essentially signs the death warrant for your harvest. All the nutrients that should have been dedicated to growing a large, juicy bulb are now diverted to develop this flower stalk and mature its seeds. The bulb itself stops growing, becoming tough, woody, and utterly unsuitable for long-term storage. It's a death knell for your onion crop. But here's where it gets really interesting. Let's try to get inside the head of an onion, so to speak. Of course, it doesn't think like we do. It has no desires, no emotions. But what it does have is something far more important: a precise and unyielding biological program, ingrained over millions of years of evolution. This program is passed down from generation to generation, dictating to the onion exactly what to do and when. It operates with clockwork precision, reacting to specific environmental signals such as day length and, most importantly for our purposes, temperature. And this program for survival and reproduction is actually incredibly simple. It consists of just two main stages, spanning a 2-year life cycle. Understanding these two stages is, in fact, the key to solving our bolting problem. Let's break them down, in order. So, what's the primary goal for an onion in its first year of life? It's quite simple. In its very first year, right after that tiny seed sprouts, the young onion plant has one crucial mission: to accumulate as many nutrients as possible and store them away for the future. Survival is key. To achieve this, it actively develops its green foliage, or leaves. Through photosynthesis in these leaves, the plant harnesses energy from the sun and draws essential nutrients from the soil. All these accumulated resources are then carefully stored in its underground portion. This is how that small bulb, which we know as an onion set, gradually forms. Essentially, this bulb acts as its pantry, a strategic reserve for the winter months. All its energy is dedicated to the growth of this bulb itself. There's no focus on flowering or reproduction during this first year whatsoever. The main goal is simply to bulk up and prepare for the colder weather. Now the second stage begins. The onion bulb has successfully weathered the winter. The cold period is over. For its biological program, this acts like a switch being flipped. The signal is clear. Year 1 is complete. The mission of accumulating resources has been accomplished. So, what happens next? The program now dictates the most crucial task in any plant's life: to leave behind offspring, ensuring the continuation of its kind. For an onion, this means one thing: it must flower and produce seeds. Therefore, as soon as the warmth of spring arrives, the second-year bulb mobilizes all the reserves it accumulated the previous summer, channeling them entirely into forming a flower stalk. This is its primary mission. Growing a large edible bulb is no longer part of its plan. It fulfilled its resource accumulation task last year. Now it's time to reproduce. This process is completely natural and inevitable for any onion bulb in its second year of life. So, let's get back to our larger onion sets. You know, those premium bulbs, more than 2 or even 2.5 centimeters in diameter. Biologically speaking, what exactly are they? Well, these are the bulbs that have already fully completed their first year of growth. They've accumulated plenty of nutrients and energy. They're already mature and entirely ready for the next phase. Their internal clocks are precisely set for reproduction. Essentially, when you buy such a large onion set, you're getting a bulb that's on the cusp of its second year of life. It's simply waiting for the right signal to initiate flowering, and that crucial signal for it is the winter it spends nestled in your garden. Here's what happens next. With the best of intentions, you plant those big, beautiful onion sets in the fall. They take root and adapt beautifully to their new home. Then, the cold weather sets in, and the ground freezes solid. The bulb goes into a state of dormancy, effectively sleeping through the winter. This prolonged cold period, what agronomists call vernalization, acts as a crucial trigger for it. Its internal biological program receives the exact signal it's been waiting for. Winter's over, and that means the first year of life is complete. For the onion, this is an unmistakable sign that it's time to transition to the second stage of its life cycle. It simply has no other options. It's ingrained in its very nature. It doesn't know that you're expecting a large, plump onion. It has its own mission, and it follows it without deviation. So, what do we see come spring? Once the soil warms up and the sun really starts to shine, our large, overwintered onion set awakens. But instead of, as we'd expect, putting all its energy into developing those lush, juicy scales and forming a big, marketable onion, it does something entirely different. It's simply following its biological program for its second year of life. And that program clearly states, time to reproduce. And so, instead of a strong cluster of green shoots, that notorious flower stalk begins to emerge from the centre of the bulb. The plant pours all its stored energy and nutrients into this process, fulfilling its primary, natural purpose. And we, meanwhile, are left high and dry, staring at tidy rows of utterly useless flower stalks. That's right, just one wrong choice in the size of your onion sets in autumn can lead to a complete loss of your harvest come spring. So what kind of harvest can you expect from a garden bed like this? Essentially, one that's only good for the trash. First off, the bulb that produced the flower stalk essentially stops developing. It won't grow large, it'll remain small, and its texture will become incredibly tough, fibrous, almost woody. Secondly, a dense, hard core from that flower stalk develops inside the bulb, making it utterly inedible. And thirdly, these bulbs have absolutely no storage life. They start to rot within just a couple of weeks of being harvested, so all your autumn hard work, all your hopes and expectations, go completely to waste. You've spent time, effort and money on planting material, only to end up with just flowers. They might be pretty, but that's certainly not what we want from an onion bed. The entire harvest is essentially lost. So, what kind of onion sets should you choose to avoid this disaster? Is fall planting really such a gamble? Absolutely not. The secret to successful planting lies in choosing the right, or I'd even go so far as to say, the only correct size of onion set. And this choice is directly opposite to what our intuition might tell us. For planting onions in the fall for bulbs, you shouldn't choose the largest sets. Quite the opposite. You need to pick the smallest ones available. Yes, you heard that right. Those tiny, unassuming little bulbs that many inexperienced gardeners tend to overlook, thinking they're either defective or simply too small, are actually pure gold for your fall garden. It's precisely these small ones that hold the key to a bountiful harvest. Gardeners often have special names for these incredibly small onion sets, sometimes calling them pickings or leftovers. These are the tiniest bulbs that remain after the main harvest has been sorted. Their diameter rarely exceeds a centimetre, and often they're even smaller, just 5 to 7 millimetres. They really do look like tiny peas, and it's this miniature size that makes them the perfect choice for overwintering. When you're selecting onion sets, specifically aim for those in the under 10 millimetre category. Anything larger than that is considered a risk for this type of planting, so don't shy away from these little ones. In fact, confidently choose them. Believe me, this Cinderella of the onion world will transform into the true queen of your garden come spring. So, what's the secret behind this tiny little onion bulb, working precisely as we need it to? The answer, once again, lies in its biology. This small ovshushka, this undersized bulb, simply hasn't accumulated enough nutrients yet. It lacks the strength, the critical energy reserves to even think about flowering and reproduction. Its internal programming hasn't reached the stage where it's ready to send up a flower stalk. Figuratively speaking, it's still a child, far too young to be thinking about offspring. For the upcoming season, its entire biological directive is simple: survive and grow, put on mass, build up its strength. This is its sole and primary objective. So when you plant these small onion sets in the fall, here's what happens. Just like larger sets, they survive the winter. The cold period passes, but for them, this cold isn't a signal to reproduce. Their biological clock hasn't struck midnight yet. They don't perceive winter as the completion of their first year of life. Instead, they simply see it as a difficult, unfavourable period that needs to be endured. Then, in the spring, when the warmth arrives, they awaken with one single thought: time to grow, fast, and make up for lost time. All their energy and strength are directed towards developing a powerful root system and vigorously growing green shoots, allowing them to accumulate as much nutrition as possible through photosynthesis. And all that accumulated nutrition, in turn, goes directly into the bulb, making it large, juicy, and healthy. By using this simple technique, we're essentially outsmarting the onion's natural tendencies. We leverage its own biological mechanisms, but redirect them to our advantage. We deliberately select immature planting material, which isn't yet primed for flowering. We then allow it to fully mature in our garden beds, transforming into a robust, marketable onion bulb. In essence, we're artificially prolonging its first year of life, while larger onion sets planted in the fall are almost guaranteed to jump straight into their second-year program, which often means bolting. Our smaller, undersized sets will faithfully and diligently complete their first-year program, dedicating all their energy to growing us that perfect full-size bulb we've been dreaming of. This isn't magic, it's sound agronomy, rooted in a clear understanding of the plant's life cycle. So let's establish a simple yet golden rule for gardeners to keep in mind. When planting onion sets in autumn for a large harvest next summer, always pick the smallest ones. The smaller, the better. Ideally, they should be no more than 1 centimetre in diameter. This humble-looking little set is your best friend in securing a bountiful harvest. It won't waste energy bolting. Instead, it will focus all its strength on growing a large, healthy bulb. Keep this rule in mind, and you'll eliminate the problem of spring bolting forever. Alright, so what about those larger onion sets? The choice ones we just decided not to plant for full-size bulbs? Are they completely useless? Should we just toss them out? Absolutely not. These onions actually have a different, but equally valuable and important purpose, and if you use them correctly, they'll bring you enormous benefits. You see, their reason for planting will simply be entirely different. Large onion sets are the ideal, truly unsurpassed material for getting the earliest spring harvest of juicy, vitamin-packed green onions. Yes, they are perfectly suited for growing for their greens, and in this case, their size isn't a downside at all. It's a massive plus. Here's how it works. As we've already discussed, a large onion bulb is packed with a huge store of nutrients. Think of this as its initial energy reserve. When you plant it in the fall for overwintering, it naturally wants to send up a flower stalk in the spring. But that's exactly what we want, because to produce a strong flower stalk, the plant first needs to form a lush clump of leaves, in other words, green onion tops. And thanks to its stored energy, it does this incredibly quickly and vigorously. As soon as the snow melts, robust, plump, dark green shoots emerge from the soil. You'll get your very first harvest of fresh greens in your garden, often before any other crops have even begun to wake up. Simply snip off the greens as you need them, before they get tough, and enjoy a boost of fresh vitamins. Here's our perfect strategy. To grow large, full-sized onions, we plant the smallest grade of onion sets in the fall, allowing them to overwinter. Right next to that, in a separate, smaller bed, we plant larger onion sets, those over 2 centimetres in diameter. We'll use this bed as our green conveyor belt, providing a continuous supply of fresh greens. In early spring, when we're all craving something fresh, we get a robust harvest of green onion tops from it for our salads. Meanwhile, the main bed with its tiny sets quietly develops our future bulb, onion crop without sending up flower stalks. This way, we kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We get our early greens, and our main onion harvest is safely on its way. The key is simply not to mix up which bed is for what purpose. So, what about those medium-sized onion sets? You know, the bulbs measuring 1 to 2 centimetres. This is often considered the sweet spot size. It's best to save these for spring planting. Putting them in the ground in autumn is quite risky. Some might manage to avoid bolting, but others, particularly the larger ones within this range, will still bolt. It's a real 50-50 gamble. However, for traditional spring planting, these are absolutely perfect. They have enough stored energy for a quick start, and the relatively short spring and summer growing season doesn't trigger them to bolt prematurely. So here's the strategy. The smallest sets go in before winter for mature bulbs. The largest ones go in before winter for green onions. And the medium-sized ones? Let them patiently wait for spring in a cool, dry place. And here's the game changer. Turns out in the world of onion sets, there's no such thing as a bad size. There's just incorrect usage. The mistake thousands of gardeners make isn't buying the wrong onion, but not knowing its true purpose. That very large onion set, which is guaranteed to bolt if you try to grow it into a full bulb, will become your champion for producing early greens. So, it turns out that the main enemy of your harvest is simply our stereotype that bigger is better. We've completely debunked that myth. For overwintering, if you want large bulbs, aim for the smallest, most unassuming sets. Their larger, more beautiful siblings are perfect for a bounty of fresh green onions for your spring dishes. Nothing goes to waste when you know this simple trick. So to recap, to prevent your overwintering onions from bolting, choose the smallest sets. no more than 1 centimetre in diameter when planting for full bulbs. Anything larger? Go ahead and plant them separately for greens. It's a simple rule that will save your harvest and your sanity. Thanks for watching till the end. I hope you found this tip helpful. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more gardening hacks. Now, a question for you. Have you ever had onions bolt on you? And what size onion sets do you usually choose for your overwintering plantings? Let me know in the comments below. Let's chat about it.